Hey guys, welcome back again. Today we want to conquer string methods. Let's keep this lesson a bit more brief. I know the last one was a bit longer. Let's try whiz through some of these. Now, I'm aware that what I'm doing here is I'm going through concepts very short in our videos, and then I'm giving you activities to work on afterwards. Today I want to throw in some more activities as well. I throw into my students. So to begin with, the first thing we're going to look at is f-string. So what I've got here is three parts to a domain, a URL. So you've probably seen the URL before. All right, in our URL we'll have something like https:// The next part is going to be the actual domain. So it could be something like code and conquer. And then actually let's change the top level domain from .com to .org. And before we use concatenation to join together three things in the print statement, right? So I could say print, and then I could say, right, let's print protocol plus domain plus top level domain. Let's click on that. Okay, that should work. If we click on that, it works. It looks great. Okay. Now in a string, joining together objects, as you know, we use the plus icon. Okay. What if I was to say, for example, I want to add a string here as well. I want to say go to, then I'll do that, and then I'll add the plus there. And if I run it now, it says go to https://codeandconquer.org. What I want to do now is I want to join it all together using something called f-strings. So Python has a quicker way of doing concatenation. And there's some advantages to it. We'll go through it as well. So for example, all I'm going to do is I'm going to put the f at the beginning, just outside of the first string. And you can use a capital or a lowercase f. It doesn't really matter. Now, rather than me using the plus symbols, what I can do instead is I can put those variable names in using curly brackets. So the f allows me to insert variables within the string using curly brackets. So now if I say protocol, okay, then directly behind it I will add domain, and directly behind that we'll do one more. We'll call that one top level domain, and let's make some more space here. And I can get rid of these. Let's get rid of those. Right, so now it looks like this. So if I print that out, it works in exactly the same way. You can see I've got the same output. So f-strings are a great way for me to insert variables, like I said. Now, it's very useful for one other thing. So let's say, for example, I had, let's say I've got a number. Oops. Let's say I've got a number, and the number could be random. Let's say number 9, right? Now, we know that's an integer. And we mentioned this in our previous lessons, that we can't mix together integers and strings without doing casting, right? So for example, if I wasn't to be using f-strings, I would have to say I'm thinking of a number. Oh, forgive my spelling. I'm thinking of a number, and then I can say which it is, and I'll say plus, and you know I have to cast that to a string, and then I'll say number. Now, this is all well and good. That should work. There you go. There's my output. I should include a space there. Okay. But if I use f-strings, what's really cool about that is I don't have to cast, because when I put the f there, I'm telling it to format this into a string. Okay. This is what f-strings really means. I'm formatting strings. So now I'll get rid of that. I'll just put my curly brackets there, and I'll just say number, and there's no need for me to cast because it does it for me. Now that makes it a bit easier, right? So I could say another thing. I could say, let's say my number is 2. Let's reduce that so it's easier to write. And I can do this. This is interesting now. So I'll say I've got my I've got my strings there, my quotations, and I'm going to say number, and I'm going to do this outside of the brackets, number plus number equals, and now within the brackets, I'm going to put it all together inside the curly brackets, so it evaluates the sum as well. So now if I click on run, I've got 2 plus 2 equals 4, right? So inside these curly brackets, it's actually evaluating the sum first, and then it's returning the value. And at the same time, because I've used the equals there as well, you know that's a string, that's a part of a string, and so is the plus symbol. It's casted everything for me into string format. Okay, so that's the first thing. So the next thing I want to look at are three string methods together, right? We can kind of guess what they are: lower, upper, and title. Right, so I've got a basic string here, okay? And you can guess what goes on. Now, with these methods, this is what we call the dot method, all right? So we take our variable here, and what we do is we apply a function to it using the dot method. Okay, so for example, dot lower is going to turn everything to lowercase, dot upper should turn everything to uppercase, and then dot title should make it so that only the first character of each separate letter in a string should be capitalized while the rest is lower. So if we click on run, what we're going to see here is everything's lowercase, everything's uppercase, and then, like we said, title case. So just the first letter in each word. Okay, so the next one we're going to look at are the strip methods. So you can see here in this string, I've got space before the string begins and then space after the string begins. So there are three for me to show you. Let's try print, and we'll say string dot. If we were to say lstrip, that method, let's copy and paste that. That method will remove the space from the left, okay? And then obviously, if we were to say rstrip, it should remove the space from just the right-hand side and not the left. And then lastly, we can just use strip, which should remove both. Let's try that. So if we run that, and let's do that. So the first one removed the space from the left, but if I was to do this, you can see that the space on the right is still there. Now, if I was to do this starting from way over here, you can see that there's no space on the right, but the space on the left is still remaining because this one is removed, rstrip. And then if we just click on strip, again, if I'll highlight it from here, you can see that there's no space before or after. You can see where there is space, I'm able to highlight that here and here. Yeah, cool. So that's strip for us. So the next thing I want to look at is our escape characters. So in Python, you're probably not going to use all of these, but they're very useful, okay? So let's look at 2 or 3 of them, and then I'm not going to explain the rest. They're here on my slide, and I would hope that you guys would go and you would do some research and try out for yourselves, yeah? So let's try the first one. Let's create a string for ourselves. So string equals. So let's try add this string includes a new line. Okay. Now what I want to do is I want to insert a new line into the string. So if I use \n, that there creates a new line for me. So if I click on run, I should print first, shouldn't I? Let's print string. There we go. So this string includes a new line. I did not put an S there. The next one is, let's say this string includes a tab. So tab. We'll basically insert a tab as you would space push with your tab button. And I'm just going to create this space just there. So you should see an extra space. So now when I print it, you can see there's the extra space there, the tab. Yeah, 4 spaces. And then here's an interesting one. Okay, so I'm going to add a basic string here. I'm going to say she said and then I want another set of double quotes here. Open the door. Now, the problem here, oops, wrong one. The problem here is Python is, oh, have I got enough? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, that's correct, yeah. So now Python is, you know that a string begins from the first quotation mark and it should end at the last. But because I've got a quote here, so because I'm quoting someone else, there's an extra quote, I need to get rid of that. What's going on is Python will display from here to here, and then it will say there's an error here because it doesn't understand why there is a further string after the second quote where the string should end, right? So if I run that, you can see it says invalid syntax on line 1, string, she said, open the door, and it kind of just points to it as well. So it points to this area here and says, what does that mean? What is this after the second quote? So what we're going to do is we're going to include a backslash there, which basically means ignore that quote, and a backslash there as well. So if we ignore these two, then the string begins at this quote and it ends at this quote. If we run that now, good. It includes our quotes within our string, within our print output. So in this one, we're going to use the replace method. So I'm going to change the string. It says, I will go to codeandconquer.org for extra tasks. Of course you will. And so I'm going to make a new variable here. I'm going to call that modified. Modified equals basically my underscore string, okay, dot replace. So we're using the replace method here, replace function, and we're going to replace I will, or go, I will go to, will go, and then we'll put a comma there. So that's what we're looking for, and we're going to replace that with I went. So if I run now, oh no, sorry, we're not printing string, we're printing modified. So if we run that, it says, I went to codeandconquer.org for extra tasks. So you can see it replaced will go with went. Okay, now what we have is we have a number here with, some a long decimal place. So we've got a few numbers after the point, decimal point. And I've got an example here where I've used f strings, but the function you're looking at, the method you're looking at here is the round method, or round function, should I say. So the round function, I have said I've referenced the variable amount, and then after the comma, I've given an argument here of 2, which should mean that there should be 2 decimal places. So it should be 2.34. The next one, I've got a 0, which should mean that this is 0 decimal places. If we run that, you can see 2.35. Oh, right, it's rounded. Okay, that's cool. And then the next one's 2.0. And there's 2 ways of doing this. So this is the first way. The other way of doing it, since I'm using f strings, actually f strings has some interesting shortcuts. So I can do this actually without using the round function at all. And the way to do that is we'll get rid of where it says round, and we'll remove the extra bracket. Let's get rid of round. Okay, and what we're going to do instead is we're going to say amount, and we'll get rid of the commas as well. So we'll say colon dot f2. No, my mistake. It should be 2f. So do the same again. So we'll say colon dot 0f. So this is f-string's quick way of formatting decimal places. If I run it, exactly the same, except check it out, in this method, it removes the 0.0 as well. Cool. Right, so we've done that. We've looked at round. Let's look at length. Okay, so next what I've got is a string, and this has a certain amount of characters in it. I don't know how many there are. So what I want to do is, I can do this in 2 ways. I can write it directly in here, but I'm going to put it as a variable. So I'm going to say str length is equal to, and the function we're learning here is the len function. So len is basically short for length, and I want to put string inside. Okay, so what this basically says is this will count how many characters there are in a string, So if I type in str_string here, then that should tell me the length of a string is, oh, it's because I spelled something wrong, haven't I? Oh, string length. I wrote string. My bad. There we go. So now when I run it, the length of the string is 21 characters. Okay, cool. Okay, guys, the next one, I'm not going to type this out. I'm just going to show you on the 2 slides that I've got here. So, as you've been studying, you probably studied a bit of binary by now if you're watching these videos. If you haven't, you will. Now, binary is used to represent numbers, but it's also used to represent the characters that we may have on a document. So whether that's on a web page or whether that's on a Word document or a notepad, we have to represent those characters with binary, because as you know, computers can only store data in a state of true or false, or 0 and 1. So this is an example of what's known as Unicode. So the \U is a shortcut to display Unicode characters. Now, one of the reasons why we use Unicode is because we have lots of symbols and lots of alphabets that can't be represented with just basic binary characters. So Unicode allows us to extend the alphabets that we have on a computer, which will include more than just the Latin alphabet and a few numbers and punctuation, right, or special characters. So for example, here, there's an example of a Unicode character for a heart, but it could also be that we represent Unicode characters for other alphabets other than Latin characters, such as Greek, Arabic, Chinese, Japanese, etc. Yeah. So in this example, \U2764, when printed, is going to display a heart. Okay. Now you can see there are 4 characters here. Each character here is represented by a hexadecimal digit. Okay, so each hexadecimal digit is 4 characters. So this would be, these 4 digits would represent a 16-bit character. Okay, sometimes though, we've got characters that are longer. All right, so we've also got 32-bit characters. And so that would be represented with a 8-bit hexadecimal number, right? Which would output this. So guys, I think that's the end of this video. So we've covered our string methods as well. As always, please go to the website, try the activities. And the reason being is because in these videos, I know I briefly go over each thing, but you need to practice and apply what you learn in order to better cement your learning and become more confident. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.